Hello, what's up? It's the Race Brain Hyrox show. I'm your host, Matt Mason. Today, we have a very special guest. Some of you may know him as the Canadian champ. Some of you may know him as the qualifier for all three DECA events last year at Worlds. The Fit, where he dusted Kent and Rich Ryan. The DECA Mile, where he got third. And the DECA Fit, where he just lost to Ryan Kent by 10 seconds. Other of you may know him, if you're a longtime listener to the podcast, as Deebo, the one and only Milwaukee's best athlete, Marcus Wallace. Marcus, what's up, man?
Not much. Yes, the Deebo. I'm coming for Rich Ryan in Chicago. That's my next Race Brain I'm taking down.
Dude,
and he knows it. I let him know.
So, dude, tell us a little bit about that. So that's actually a story that I don't know. I don't know when I probably started listening to Race Brain like probably a year or two ago. And at that point, they were already referring to you as Deebo. But where did that nickname come from?
I really don't know. I think I have. I think part of it might be a little bit of my crazy eye I have when I take my glasses off. So it might be poking fun at me. I know it occurred after Bracken came and we did a DECA Fit simulation.
And you gave Bracken that work.
And Bracken was doing very well until we got to the Echo bike. And I don't know if he's ever been on an Echo bike based on how slow he was going on there. But after that, that's when they started saying that. But I thought we were just having fun. I didn't realize it was such a big competition.
Dude, I got to imagine that that BK is not the first person in the world that everything was going great in a DECA event until they hit the Echo bike.
Yeah. Well, thankfully in actual DECAs, they have the assault bike too, which is maybe a little more forgiving, but
yeah. Well, dude, it's a pleasure to have you on the show as a fellow Milwaukeeite. I don't even know. I just claim Milwaukee. I'm actually not originally from here, but I live here now. It is the hybrid Mecca. If you've been listening to the Race Brain Hyrox show, but dude, super pumped to have you on today. This is going to be the first of what we hope to be many interviews this Hyrox season. Just getting to know some of the athletes, Elite 15 athletes and others that are trying to break in. Marcus obviously has a really strong start to the season. He, as his name indicates, he actually won the overall in Hyrox Toronto with a time of 57:57, which I believe was about a little over 3.5 minute PB. Is that correct?
Yes, definitely unexpected and quite a bit faster than my last one.
Yeah, man. Dude, you gave them that work. Heat 1 went out. They just, they thought they had it. You were halfway through your race. They were celebrating, giving out awards, patting people on the back, and Deebo said, "No, not today."
We started actually. We were originally scheduled to start 40 minutes after them, and we ended up there was a delay, so we started 50 minutes after them. So I was actually probably on the second run when they were already declaring the champion.
Oh wow, that's wild. Well, dude, we will get into we'll definitely get into Hyrox Toronto and just kind of your plans for the upcoming season. But actually just want to kind of start by getting to know you a little bit more. I don't think a lot of people necessarily know you and your background. I think it's a cool opportunity for people to kind of hear. So dude, I heard I think this might be surprise some people. It surprises me. The rumor is that you may or may not have played college football for a little institution known as Harvard. Is that correct?
That is incorrect.
Incorrect,
but close-ish. The #1 Harvard rival, Yale.
Oh, I can't wait till Rich listens to this, dude. I thought he had teed me up. I wonder if Rich probably just set me up. Knowing Rich, he just set me up. He's like, dude, tell him that he played football at Harvard. He's gonna love it. And then now I look like a fool, dude. Okay, so Yale, dude, that's crazy, man. So tell us about that. How did you wind up at Yale?
So I always tell people, actually, in high school I was always like a 3-sport, football, basketball, track. Track was probably actually my best sport relatively. So I ended up getting. I would run the 1-2. I would anchor the 4x4 and throw shot put as well. So I was sort of all over the place then. But yeah, so that was probably my best sport. And then I was also the same size I am now, so probably like 6'3", 200 in high school. So since I was bigger and faster, I got recruited for football by a few schools, and I did well in school. So that's the Ivy League sort of connection there.
Dude, that's amazing. I mean, we'll have to figure out if we can confirm this, but I don't know if you might be the only elite hybrid athlete from an Ivy League school.
I'm not sure. Yeah, I haven't heard of anyone else.
Dude, well, I got to know, what did you study at Yale?
I was a history major.
Okay, nice.
Yeah.
And what did you do you use that degree today, or kind of what does your day-to-day look like?
I do not use it at all today. I never used it.
That's amazing.
Right after school, I went right into owning a CrossFit gym, pretty much.
Okay.
Did that until last year. Now I'm in like a remote sales gig.
Oh, nice, man. Awesome. So when did you get into CrossFit?
Actually, so probably when I was in college, so I'm pretty OG, like 2008. I had a friend who went off to college and started doing CrossFit. And then he came home after that, our first year in college in the summer, and he was doing CrossFit. I had to get my setup for football training. So OG CrossFit, and then also OG Garage Gym. We had a whole platform. We made a pull-up bar in our garage. So I would mostly do my football stuff, but then if there was a good-looking CrossFit workout, I would start doing that.
That's awesome, man. That's dude, that's super cool. So dude, CrossFit gym owner, this makes sense. This makes sense as to why you're so into the numbers and the data. Ivy League guy, for analyzing those splits. Did you do, before you got into Hyrox or DECA, did you do any like local CrossFit competitions or any regionals or anything like that?
I never really got into CrossFit competitions. Probably one of my first years, it must have been like the 2013 Open, maybe. I was doing box jumps and I came down and tore my Achilles, which happens to people. And after that, I was like, I am good on trying to be competitive in CrossFit at all. So I always just did class workouts pretty much.
Okay, so talk to me a little bit about that, because so you tore your Achilles doing box jump overs or box jumps, but then in DECA, which you are very good at and very strong at, box jump overs is obviously a station, and you have to work those pretty fast. How's that been for you? Any hesitation there?
So the main thing that I think the Achilles is from the rebounding, where you come off and you're right into the next jump. And I don't know what you call the DECA step overs. Those
the DECA stomp.
I've never felt. I actually do think they sort of feel cool when you get a rhythm going, but no, I've never felt any trepidation with that.
Yeah, I think that's part of the reason why I've yet to attempt a DECA. That's just a certain level of rhythm that I'm not sure that I have. But those who execute it well, execute it real well. Well, that's cool, man. So okay, so growing up, big guy, fast guy. Let's get some stats. So you ran the 100. What'd you run the 100 in?
Like 10.7 was my best 100.
Okay, so you could probably give Sha'Carri Richardson a run for her money back in your day.
Yeah, 200 was the one I won state at, so that was 21.94. So yes, I still do watch women's track, and I always make sure to tell my wife if I can beat the woman who wins. It's usually right on the edge. They're usually either just above or just below.
Dude, you were state champ in the 200?
Yeah, and the 4x4 we also won that.
Okay, so we're gonna take a quick step back. I thought we had moved on from this, but now I'm curious. What was the I had to imagine if you were a state champ in the 4x4 and the 200, I had to imagine you got recruited for track too, no?
A little bit, but track is so tough. They have very few scholarships. Like I know I took like a visit to Wisconsin. They basically told me, unless you're a Big Ten champ, you aren't going to really be getting much to come run here. So I did have a very short tryout with the Yale track team, but it was in between. We got a new football coach. Same time I was about to start doing track, and it was either, be there for spring ball or probably not play the next year. So kept it with football.
Got it. Got it. So basically it came down to, it was a smart choice on your end, came down to the money. Where the money was, that's where you went.
Yeah. They don't offer scholarships for the Ivy League, but they offer very generous financial aid. So I definitely did not have to pay much.
Yeah. As a D3 athlete, which the Race Brain guys would let you know is not a real athlete, I'm familiar with the not offering athletic scholarships, but finding other ways to get you financial assistance. So that totally makes sense. All right. So 10.7 on the 100, 21.94, but you're a big guy and you're a CrossFit guy. Let's talk about those lifts. What are you squatting, Marcus?
What am I squatting today, or what is my max in my life?
Let's do both. Let's go both.
I remember one day in football we were testing. I've never had a strong squat, and I was determined. I was like, okay, I'm going to do 400 today. I hit 400 one day, and after that, I was like, I'm never doing that again. So that was a lifetime PR. If I had to guess now, if I really push, maybe like 350.
Okay, that's not bad. Hey, that's pretty good maintenance right there. What about deadlift?
Deadlift again, lifetime PR, probably like 535. Now 450 ish, probably.
That's not bad. Bench, let's get all the vanity lifts out of the way.
You know, I do not look like I would be good at bench, but I did bench 375 in college playing football. But
Dang.
that is playing college football where that's like all you do.
Sure.
I don't even know bench now, 275, 300, maybe somewhere in there.
Okay. And then we'll do one more. What's your best Olympic lift?
I've clean and jerk 315. I always like cleans, power cleans. Those are probably one of my stronger movements.
Dang, dude, that's some serious weight, man. Well, awesome, dude. I mean, I think one thing I'm curious about is talk to me a little bit about your journey through Hyrox. I believe, if I remember correctly, you ran your first one. You did pro in Chicago 2022. You ran a 63, which at the time, I mean, that's a 63 today is still very good. But back then, I mean, not a lot of guys going under 65. That's your first race. I mean, for those people who listen to the show often, when we're talking about new entrants coming in, typically Rich will set the line at can they go over or under 65, and you went under right away. You followed that up in Dallas 2023 with a 61 mid. And then I believe your season was cut a little bit shorter than you would have liked last season, right at the beginning because of some sickness. Is that correct?
Yes, there was basically no season last year. Do you want me to go from the beginning?
Yeah, man. I'm kind of curious about the progression of how we got to today.
Yeah, I mean, so like I said, I did CrossFit a lot, but I also primarily a lot of bike riding. So I was definitely more endurance oriented, I would say, than most CrossFitters. Long bike rides. I started doing like Zwift indoor training in like 2019. I did a bunch of that.
Nice. You got the whole setup still? You got a sick bike at home?
I got the new Zwift ride. If anyone follows Zwift, it's
nice. Okay.
It's a really nice ride. So yes, I like to do that as well. But yeah, I did endurance oriented CrossFit, and then I found Hyrox. I knew a guy who is an affiliate owner in Miami. So if you know, that was one of the first like Hyroxes in 2019. So I probably should have been there because he was hyping it up. I know he participated in it, and then did like the Dallas one where they had like that exhibition invitational. So I knew about it for a while. I decided to get into it. Just basically did CrossFit. I thought I was running a lot. I probably ran like 2 days a week. I remember specifically, I started, I think at 30-minute was my long run. And then I added 2 minutes a week until I think I did like 12 weeks. So I was at like just under an hour, and then maybe like one interval day. So that's basically what that 63 was off of, just strong stations and holding on the running.
Yeah, that's crazy, man. I mean, for not running, you held, I mean, obviously you've got a background, I mean, at least in short distance running, but average pace in that very first Hyrox was a 4:30. It's not bad for a CrossFit guy that doesn't run very often.
Yes. And I think actually one thing I sort of forgot about, but as you were talking, so when I signed up for that race on the registration page, they had it very specifically said, after like the 4 fall North American races, if you're in the top 15 fastest times in North America, you get invited to the North American Championships. So that was sort of like, oh, cool. All of a sudden, I'm like, oh, I guess I'll be in that top 15. But they did not do that. I emailed them and they're like, oh, yeah, we aren't doing that. I'm like, but you can see it. It's still on the website right here. So that made me sort of think, oh, maybe I could be competitive in this in a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, dude. I mean, I think the thing that sticks out to me from your very first Hyroxes. I mean, that 2022, those were the old sleds. I think that was after they had changed it from being 225 meters to 12 and a half, right?
It was 12 and a half, but they were the heavier ones. And I
Yeah, they were
think
the heavier ones.
even
You're
then,
number
I
one
think,
in sled pull. You went sub 4 minutes on sled pull. Most people, if they're gonna get buried in the first Hyrox Pro, it's gonna be on that sled pull.
well, so what happened is there was another guy who I believe had been maybe like in the North American Champs or Elite 15 before in my heat. And we got to the sled push, and it's my first one. So he pushes, I push. We're going back and forth. I think I did like the full length twice. I specifically remember coming off that sled push though and thinking like, I'm cooked. I'm done. I'm 10 minutes in, and I definitely overworked. But we got to the sled pull, and he was ahead of me, and then he was very bad at the sled pull. So I think that gave me a little boost, and was able to carry it through. And I've seen my burpee time. If you have up my burpee time, it was like insanely fast.
I was gonna say
I don't know about that burpee time.
Yeah,
I don't do that now.
For some context, Marcus saying that he was cooked after the sled push was a 4:35 run 3. I think a lot of people listening would love to have a 4:35 run time when they're cooked. Then he went into the burpee broad jumps, and if this time is to be believed, did burpee broad jumps in a minute 58, which is smoking fast. That's like Amsterdam burpee fast.
It was definitely a 2x40 meters. I remember that, but yeah, I don't know how I did it that fast. There might have been a timing error.
So then you followed it up in Dallas 2023. And then didn't race again until, I guess, I'm assuming Anaheim 2024. That would have been the last chance qualifier, correct? Oh yeah, because we talked there before your race.
So yeah, right after that Chicago, actually, just to give him a shout out, Rich Ryan, who people might know. He was my coach. He was my coach right after that. So he really helped me develop a really good running base. Really just aerobic base. I kept doing some CrossFit stuff, but he would give me all the endurance training I could handle. So he really built me up really good. And we actually raced against each other in Fort Worth that time. Yeah, it was pretty cool because he was my coach and he took first, I took second. So it felt good leaving there. I think I passed a Nas on the wall balls right at the end too, snuck past him.
Dude, somewhere Rich is listening to this going, that's right. That's right. I won. That's me.
So I have sent Rich this, so it's not undercover, but I do have in front of my treadmill right now on my door, it says, "What's Rich doing?" That's my motivation for the next month until we get to Chicago. So, I'll try and get my.
That's right. We got a showdown coming up here in about 4.5 weeks.
Yeah, I'll be ready.
We'll get to that. So,
but yeah, so he built up my endurance base really well. I did pretty good in that Fort Worth. There was definitely one where I didn't feel like I had all the pieces together yet. So I think my plan was basically take it easier on the stations and really try and show some improved running. Which I did. And then, after that, just kept training all summer, did a little bit of DECA stuff, threw it in there. Had some fun with that. But then it came to Chicago last winter. It was in November 2023. About a month out, we were training really hard. I was feeling really good. And, usually like 3-4 weeks out, you're sort of peaking your training. And then got notice from our landlord that we weren't going to be renewing our lease, that our building was getting sold for our CrossFit gym. And I think that the stress of training, the stress from that, I got shingles. So that was my week before that Hyrox Chicago. I was rocking the shingles and decided about 2 days before probably wouldn't be a good idea to race that one.
That's crazy, man. Obviously very unfortunate that happened to you. So that kind of messed up your Hyrox plans, but that wasn't going to stop Deebo because a month later you were out on the DECA floor at Worlds just giving people that work.
Yeah. I mean, I think the shingles, they were uncomfortable. They didn't, I'm sure they affected me a little bit, but I told myself they didn't. But yeah, DECA was fun. Really the only time I've done a DECA, I did a quick qualifier for each of the 3 different races and then hopped in there. It was good getting down there, being competitive. I think I enjoy the Hyrox training a little more, so that's really the only reason I haven't done DECA. It's the stations. I prefer just trying to solve the puzzle of Hyrox a little more, I would say.
Yeah, for sure. So then you basically went back to the lab, got to work, and then talk to me about kind of like that lead up into the LCQ, because I don't know that we've actually heard from many people who raced that, or kind of what was that like? I mean, what was your feeling going into that? I mean, especially given that at that point, by the time you got to race it, it had been what, probably 18 months
It was
since you
like
had done a Hyrox?
14 months. I think I did that Dallas in March and then May for so yeah, it had been a while. I did a whole bunch of endurance work. I definitely upped my running quite a bit. So I
average
felt
pace 351. That's a 40-second improvement per run over the very first one for those who keep a track.
Yeah, so I felt ready coming in, but I think I was in my head I was saying ring rust isn't real, but I think there's a little bit of you got to be in the arena doing the race. So came out, tried to come out with everyone, and obviously last chance qualifier, everyone was coming out hard. Stuck sort of with people. I think maybe out of the sled pull I was in like 5th. Got to the burpees, threw up in my mouth as I was doing the burpees, and just started a nice slow backslide the rest of the race. So I think I ended up like 12th or 13th in that one. I definitely I went into it decided I might as well race if I'm going to be here, not really just go for a good time. So I wasn't too upset with it. I knew all the work that I was doing was good work anyway, so it was going to carry me forward. But yeah, it was a good experience for sure. And Disneyland is right across the street from that venue, so I got to go with the fam after.
Nice. That's awesome. All right, so you knock out that last chance qualifier, and then you go back to the lab for about, call it, 5 months. What's training looked like for you over the last 5 months? I mean, I think you were consistently. I mean, again, it's small sample size here, so I think that's important to talk about. But a 63, a 61 mid, 61 low, and then you just said screw 60, screw 59, screw 58. We're going right for 57s. So what changed for you over the last 5 months? What do you think helped lead to that kind of breakthrough?
Yeah, well, I definitely think I underperformed quite a bit in Anaheim from what I was capable of. You can't really say that after because people will be like, oh, you still PR'd. But I think I definitely had more in me on that one. So maybe the improvement wasn't as big as it appears. But yeah, I took like a month off just to chill. I mean, I always work out. So running, no real set plan though. And then hopped on the hybrid engine maybe towards the end of June, which is...
you left the homie Rich.
I left the homie. I was with okay, this is one thing I do talking about coaching too. I always say if I'm going to like work with a coach, I think 6 months would be like the shortest time, and probably a year is like, to actually get all the benefit from it. So I worked with Rich for a year and it was an awesome year. Everything he did made me improve. I took, especially with the transition from the gym, I took some time off where I didn't want to have a coach. I didn't want to have to be committed to anything. Then switch it up. It's such a new sport. I think it is also beneficial to get different perspectives on it. But yeah, I'm definitely not a program hopper, and I definitely had a great experience with Rich. But yeah, so hopped on the hybrid engine. Biggest thing I would say that's different from what I've done in the past, just the amount of volume is quite a bit higher than anything I've done before.
Okay, interesting. So I guess, and we could kind of just go down a quick tangent there really quick. This is obviously not a coaching podcast, and we're not going to turn it into one, but you having worked with different coaches, I guess, what advice would you give to listeners who are thinking about getting a coach or joining a program? We can keep it program agnostic, but having done different programs with different coaches and different elite coaches, what advice would you give those out there listening as they think about potentially getting a coach or joining a program?
I mean, so what I was touching on, I think I see people on there, oh, I was on this program for 6 weeks, and then they're on another program for 4 weeks, and they switch again. I mean, I would say 6 months would be the minimum I would commit to anything, but probably past that to really get the most amount of gains from it. One thing I really appreciate about like Rich and hybrid engine, it's just, in some ways it's a lot of boring stuff. I think especially coming from a CrossFit background, people try and make it look sexy and all this, but really endurance is all about just progression. So yeah, I think the best coaches are the ones you'll see those workouts and you'll be like, oh yeah, I can see what we're progressing to. But yeah, I think it's just staying with it and trusting in the coach is probably the main thing.
Okay. Yeah. And I think you also offer a unique perspective too, because to be a CrossFit gym owner, you have to be certified in CrossFit. So that means you're at least an L1. So you also have that background as a coach yourself. What advice would you give to people on like how to pick a coach? So I definitely hear and agree with the advice of, find a program and stick to it. But how would you recommend someone go about finding the right coach for them?
I mean, I really looked at what success they've had with athletes in the past. And like test them out, feel them out. I mean, I think most people, they put out a good amount of social media stuff so you can get a feel for it. I know like the hybrid engine, one thing I liked is that there is sort of a decent amount of like GPP CrossFit type stuff, which I sort of wanted to get back to as well. And it's well laid out along with all the endurance work. So yeah, I mean, I would spend your time researching up front, but then, yeah, like I said, just commit to it and trust the coach. Even with my coaching background, I mean, I definitely go into all the workouts with the athlete mindset where I'm just going to do what they say. I'm not going to really question it. It's good to have some understanding of what's going on, but past that, I just get the work done.
Yeah, I think that's totally fair. I think I think you hit the nail on the head. If you follow any of these coaches on Instagram, you're going to get a feel really quick for what kind of programming they're going to do, and you could probably align that with your weaknesses. Obviously, using our boy Rich, if you're not a strong runner, Rich is going to help make you a better runner. So, yeah, that totally makes sense. Okay, so all right, so you switched it up. Took about a month off. You started building into Toronto. Everyone talks about A races, B races. I know that you're also signed up for Chicago. So talk to me a little bit about that. Like, is was Toronto an A race and Chicago is also an A race, and you're trying to hold it together for both, or was Toronto a stepping stone on the way to Chicago to be your A race?
Toronto was definitely a stepping stone. So the way the hybrid engine
Watch out,
works
Rich. Watch out, Rich. He's dropping 57s and a stepping stone.
Mostly just in that the way the hybrid engine works is that it's just developing like a broad fitness base, really to peak towards the World Championships next June. So right now, I mean, if I look back, any like compromised running work or like really Hyrox specific work, there's been very little. Which for me, I mean, maybe that's not what I need the most, just sort of the pure running anyways. But yeah, I think Dawson and I, we both signed up right when they did the re-release. They added the day 2. So
shout out Raw Dog.
Yeah, shout out. Yeah, so it wasn't on my radar for a bit, and then I decided it would be good to get that race in and then really trying to get after it in Chicago. So yeah, that was sort of the thinking going in. I didn't stress about it too much. Went out there without if anyone watched the major last week after or before, I think they were interviewing Lauren Weeks, and she probably had similar feelings to what I did going in, where it's like, oh, I haven't really been doing much Hyrox stuff, but obviously she smashed it, and yeah, I think I had the same feeling going in. We'll just sort of see where my fitness is at, and hopefully now improve come Chicago.
Awesome. So there's been a lot of different. We're a couple weeks past this, so we won't belabor the point. But there's been a lot of talk about this. What was your perspective on the assigning of heats for Hyrox Toronto? I've obviously been very vocal. It's well documented at this point that just a quick search through the results would have let anybody know that you should have been in that first heat. But what was your kind of perspective on all that? How did that shake out for you?
Yeah, I mean, I sort of agree if they want the fast people in the first heat. I think an easy gate is just like 65 minutes. If you run under 65 minutes, you're in the first heat. I don't think there's any race in the world that they would fill up the first heat with people under 65.
Did you get an explanation as to why you weren't in the first heat?
No, I tried to contact some people, but no one ever got back to me. But to be honest, going in, it didn't bother me that much. I was sort of considering,
did it give you fuel for the fire?
So going in, maybe 2 weeks out, I'm like, maybe I shouldn't even put in a time and I'll just be in a heat all by myself and I can just time trial and not worry about anyone else. But yes, definitely then once so they came out, it was initially all alphabetical. The only one who was actually like seated was Colin Stiefer, which makes sense. Obviously, he was just in the World Championships. But then, yeah, they slowly started moving guys into the first heat. And I mean, all the guys they moved, it made sense that they moved them to the first heat. But then it was sort of like, yeah, I'm over here too, and you aren't moving me. And then Dawson, thankfully, inexplicably, actually got moved back in heats. So then him and I were in the end. So I actually sort of liked it in the end, how it worked out, because we were chilling before the race. Every time Dawson would bring it up, I'd get a little angry again, even though I told him I didn't care anymore. But yeah, they kept moving people into the first heat. They moved Magida and Atkins pretty late into the week into the first heat, but it was cool then. Yeah, that we came there and were able to take 1-2.
Yeah, Dawson hopped on that Hybrid Fitness Media live show to try to get some help to get the heat up. He was my man felt slighted, and he let him know. So
I mean,
all right,
yeah,
so
they were moving up people who've never done a Hyrox before, and yeah, I think obviously we both had times that would justify being in the first heat, but
yeah.
it all worked out.
So for those people who don't know, and I hope I'm not giving anything away here, you and Dawson have actually decided. So quick callback real quick. So Marcus and Dawson both live here in the Milwaukee area. And you both have decided that you're going to give a crack at the Elite 15 doubles championship. So you all knew each other going into the race. So talk to me a little bit about the race itself, because you guys ran together and you were pretty, I mean, you basically were neck and neck the entire time. What was that like? Were you guys, I mean, I guess walk me through the race. Were you guys like feeding off each other? Were you trying to, hold to each other? What were you, how kind of what did that look like as you progressed through the workout?
Yeah, so Dawson and I, we don't just live in the same city. We live in like the same neighborhood too. He lives like less than a mile from me. So I think that would be a pretty cool story for the doubles, but we can maybe talk about that later. But so yeah, we had trained together maybe one of our last hard workouts like a week before. And we usually haven't run when we train together, but we ran that day out on the streets actually. And I was running behind him, and he is like a metronome. We run like 500s, and I think everyone we run, even with station work, we're within like a second of each other. So I knew he'd be a good guy to pace off of, maybe not be on him, but slowly let him get in front of me, which is sort of how it happened. He skis really hard, and he runs fast at the start. So he probably had like 15 seconds on me after the ski. Sled push, we were probably equal. Sled pull, I moved pretty quick up on him, and we actually like left the sled pull shoulder to shoulder. And then burpees, put a little gap on him there, and I think it sort of just stayed consistent mostly from the burpees.
Yeah, I think you got him on the burpees and the farmer carry. I think
Yeah,
that's where you kind of put your moves in on him
yeah,
and put about 50 to 55 seconds on him.
yeah. And then we came into the wall balls. I think I had like 20 wall balls when he came in, so I was hoping I had it wrapped up there. It ended up being a little closer than I thought. But yeah, we both ran awesome time, so I think we were both pretty happy after that.
Yeah. Okay. So not necessarily working together in the sense of it wasn't premeditated, but you knew if I can just keep him close on the runs, that'll probably help propel me along.
Yeah. I mean, no matter what, it's always good to have that person you're chasing, someone you're with. We probably got a little spread out, like on the row. I don't even think we were close to each other, but it's always nice to have that person next to you. Through the first 4 stations, we were always right there with each other.
Yeah, he's a good guy to run with. I had before my marathon block that I just did, I had to do a 5K time trial, and Dawson is one of those people that he's a national champion track runner, and he's one of those people that he just knows the pace that he's running. He doesn't need to look at a watch. And so I called him up and I said, "Hey man, this is going to be a really easy pace for you. Can you pull me along to a 5K?" And he did. So great runner.
Yeah,
Great runner.
I tell people he's a real runner. I'm a wannabe runner, so it was nice to have him.
Yeah, guy can run. So yeah, so I mean, obviously, you kind of put your name on the map with authority. I was talking to Rich yesterday. There actually haven't been that many dudes who have gone sub 58 on a non-grid, so non-major course in North America. Hunter did it, obviously has done it. Kent has done it. And there might be a couple of others, but I mean, you can't fake a 57. So I mean, that's a That's a legit time on a legit course. So I guess, talk to us a little bit about what are your goals for the upcoming season?
Yeah, going into that race, I had zero thoughts about this Elite 15. I do think, especially the way things are playing out right now, it would be very challenging to get in there, given the very few number of time qualifying spots. So I'm just going to run my races, not worry about it. Obviously, I would need another fast time to even be in the discussion. I think currently I'm like barely in the top 40, maybe. So yeah, no real goals with that besides just trying to run fast in Chicago and see what happens. But past that, probably for sure getting signed up for age group world champs in Chicago. I want to be down there racing no matter what, since it's so close. And then, yeah, taking a shot at this elite doubles in Houston.
Yeah, so you're currently 40th. It looks like they have updated the times from this weekend, so those have fallen back. So the cut line is currently Jonathan Wynn at 57:09, which I mean is not out of the realm of possibility. I mean you're at 40, but part of that is because you've got your 101 from Anaheim on there. So you pop a 57 low or you pop a 56 high, you get the right course. I mean you're legitimately right in there.
I mean, if it's 57:09 now, that's 48. So that would be a 56:21 I would have to run to match that. So sounds pretty insane to me.
Yeah, but at the same time too, as you think about it, like I mean, a lot of these times are going to fall off. Like you look at, John Wynn is putting together Anaheim and then Stockholm from February. That time is gonna, fall off. You've got some people that have some 2023 times in here that are gonna, drop. You got Ryland's time his Chicago time is gonna drop here in a month. So it's definitely not out of the realm of possibility. So if not this year, maybe next year. But dude, talk to me about a little bit about your thoughts on the Elite 15 doubles. I mean, obviously that's something new this year. What are your goals for that? I would assume it's knowing Dawson like I know him and knowing you a little bit I do. I assume there's probably only one goal, and that is to win. But talk to us a little bit about your thoughts on the overall competition.
Yeah, I think it's an awesome add-on to the season. I do like how they're doing it as well, where it's just show up and race, and if you're top 3, you're in. The simplicity of that is very nice. Don't have to worry about anything before, just show up on the day. So yeah, we're signed up. We're going to be doing Houston.
It just makes sense. Having people race their way in to a championship just makes sense.
That's that. But yeah, so I know the demands of that race are definitely different, especially with my background, maybe being stronger in the stations, a little slower on the running. That I know I'm going to probably have to change my training a little bit, get a little quicker. And then, yeah, I know sometimes partner workouts the intensity of them gets ratcheted up so high that it might probably going to feel different than a Hyrox hard in a much different way. So, yeah, but I think we'll be ready come March.
We're gonna have to get a Milwaukee workout in. Get you, Dawson, BK, and we're gonna have to get some content for this. I would love to watch you and Dawson run and then rip some ergs. We might break those things.
I do. One of the most proud things in Toronto, I don't know if Dawson knows this, but I did have a run plus rock zone split that was 1 second faster than him.
Yeah, I saw.
I hammered the rock zone, so it helped me out.
Yeah, you pulled that. You pulled that JK.
That is a hybrid engine thing, I guess.
Well, dude, super excited to see what you do in the Elite 15 doubles. I mean, I'm biased. Dawson is at this point, I think it's fair to say Dawson is a good friend of mine. You're a good dude, and I think that we'll become good friends too now that we know each other. So I am a bit biased, but I mean, your all's running ability alone. I mean, kind of like you said, doubles is a different animal than singles. And so when you got two dudes who can run, but they can also put out work on the stations, you're gonna see something special. So I definitely think that you guys will do well. I would be remiss if I didn't bring it up, given that this is the Race Brain Hyrox show. Would love to kind of get your thoughts on this past weekend in Amsterdam, kind of what you saw, as well as some of the we'll just say some of the coverage surrounding Amsterdam and the sleds, mismeasured courses, we'll call it fact checking, age groupers after the fact. I just love to get kind of your thoughts on what you saw this weekend and overall.
Yeah, and generally, Hyrox is growing so fast. I think a lot of these things people like to go on social media about are, in many ways, probably small problems that don't change things too much. But yeah, I mean, obviously, super impressive performances across the board. With the ladies' adjusted times, I still would be the fastest lady in Hyrox history. For a while, Lauren Weeks had me, but so that was something. It was back and forth too. Originally, I wasn't, then I was. So adjusting times is definitely, they seem to have some issues with that. Measuring courses seems like something that they should be very good at. If they can't measure 20 meters correctly, how are they going to measure 8.7 kilometers correctly is sort of what I'm thinking. And I mean, even, 100 meters off, that's a good 20 seconds at the paces we run. It makes a big difference in some of these things. So, yeah, it's for the fairness of the sport. And if they're going to be going off times and stuff, it is a little worrying, I would say. Do we want to talk sleds?
Yeah, I think before we do, I think the only thing that I would say before we get to the sleds is I think we have seen them in the past do things where they test stuff out a year before, then they implement it the next season. My hope is that they are testing out this Elite 15 doubles qualification to see how it goes, to potentially put that in for the elites next year. I don't think any elite would disagree with having to race your way into the championship. Now, one thing that they did talk about that Rich and Ryan talked about on the RMR pod yesterday was they'd have to think about that a little bit, because one potential downfall is right now you've got certain people who are, the way you qualify for majors is based on times, and you've got some of these athletes, like I believe Meg is only racing the majors. So if they talked about like excluding the majors from from times and just having people race their way in, I think they could probably get around that pretty easily. Past success should be able to get you an entry into a race, or it could just be opens, right? That people run and top times get in. But I think that there's a way that they can solve this. I think there's enough examples now of time not being the best way to determine if someone should be in. I mean, even using you as an example, going back to Anaheim, I think every elite out there talks about how there's a difference between time trialing and racing. And if you were racing someone, you are likely not going to get the best times. And we saw that the World Championships last year, Meg and Lauren raced, they weren't time trialing. And so their overall time was slower than what they're capable of if they were time trialing. So I think that there's an easy way to solve that. But yeah, let's go to the sleds. Give me your spicy takes when it comes to the sleds.
All right. So I think one good thing about the sleds is there seems to be no rhyme or reason anymore. As if you're who's going to get a fast sled or a slow sled. You seem to mostly be country based in the past, but now it seems quite random. But yeah, I had the average sled times from the Elite 15 race in Nice and Amsterdam. So this for the men, at least, the only ones I looked at. Sled push in Nice, the average time was 2:59. And Amsterdam was 1:58. So a minute.
Which also, let's talk about that for a second. I believe, if I recall, a 2:59 average for a world championship is still fairly quick.
Fairly quick. I would say that's slower than most courses, though. So that was definitely a slow sled course. And then also the sled pull in Nice, the average for the Elite 15 was 4:11. And Amsterdam, the average was 3:01. So that's 2 minutes there.
That's massive. Yeah.
So in these races, you could say, well, times don't really matter, but obviously they do for qualifying. Also, at a certain point, I do think it alters the actual placement of people within that race. I mean, if it's a super heavy sled or super light sled, I think you're going to have a different sort of profile of athlete. And if we look at like the men for the race, now I think, the top three were pretty much, they probably would have won no matter what. Maybe Rylan, if there's a really heavy sled up front, might slow them up a little bit. But I think Ronk and Kelly were definitely ahead of everyone else. But if we start looking at towards like that 4th through 12th, where everyone is so close, 56, 46 to within a minute, the sleds, I mean, that big of a difference in the sleds is definitely going to alter that placement. And those are the people that going forward are going to be competing for world championship spots in those major races. So I do think a little more standardization with that is needed.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, Camila Massa is a friend of mine. I went to her camp, stayed at her house. She's an incredible athlete. This is not taking anything away from her. She is one of the strongest female athletes out there. She had a 90-second sled push, right? I mean, that's like, those are doubles times. I think Ronkovic had a minute 41, or he's either minute 40, minute 41. Dude's he's a world champ for a reason. He's strong. I don't think anybody thinks that pro races and elite races that the sleds should be doubles times or should be farmer carries times. I mean, that's just not the way that it is designed. So, I mean, I 100% agree. And like you said, 4th through 12th was decided by less than a minute. And that could have been, the sleds right there. Yeah. So,
but even for someone like Camilla, she might still have the fastest sled if it's heavier, but maybe she's 2 minutes and then the rest of the field's like at 3 minutes. So she actually gets a 1 minute gap there, where this time she's a minute 30, the rest of the field's at 2 minutes. So she only gets 30 seconds there. So for her, it's probably even more of an advantage, which is why I'm saying it could, alter that placement.
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt. Well, I think that we've probably beaten that, unless you have any more takes on the sleds. I think everyone at this point kind of agrees it was fast. I mean, you've even seen some of the racers themselves have come out and said that it's fast. I think I actually saw this morning that Meg Jacoby had a really good response to the whole thing and basically just said, like, look, we want standardization. That's all that we're asking for. If people are going to travel the world, if they're going to, people are quitting jobs for this, all we're asking for is standardization. So I'm curious though, what are your thoughts on I believe there was a situation, and I apologize. I could be getting it wrong. So if I am, I'm sorry, but I believe was it Sean Noble?
Yeah. Sean Noble out of Ireland. He originally, I saw his time. He was either in the Friday or Saturday race. I can't remember which one. But yeah, he was 56, maybe 34. So it's super fast time. His number was on the board for a while. And then I think the next day is when they removed it. So he was on the podium. He stood on the podium. He got his flag. And then the next day there was a video from a spectator that was shown to a judge, and they gave him a 6-minute penalty. And then I think he sort of told them, just take my time off the board. So
yeah, I'm looking right now. It's been updated to 59:55 on high result. I don't know what it is on Hyrox. I guess. What are your? I mean, so he came out. I saw that he came out and he basically said, like, look, like, I'm not going to argue. It was egregious. Whatever. But what are your thoughts on fans or spectators submitting videos to Hyrox and getting results changed?
I mean, I think everyone should just try and get in the 5th heat and there's no eyes on you, and then you can do whatever you want. That is a joke. No, I was in the comments of one of his posts, and I think one of his competitors was in there and said they saw the video, and it sounds like it was pretty egregious, like, maybe very intentionally trying to short the lunges, not just like a short 1-inch shuffle step in between them. So yeah, but it's tricky because, I mean, there should be a judge there in the first place. If it was that egregious, they should be able to see it. I think once you cross that finish line, that sort of has to be your time. You did everything that was told. No one told you not something, but yeah, I'm not even sure if he was in like a main heat. It seems like if they seeded and he was in the first heat, he's way on the lead. I'm not sure why there weren't more eyes on him.
Yeah, I mean, I think I just generally have a problem with fans, spectators policing other competitors. That's what judges are for. I understand that a lot of these are volunteer positions and whatnot, but it just seems, and again, he himself said it was egregious. So, he owned it. So, shout out to him, respect for owning it. But how many other athletes also did similar things, or, shorted the course, or, did something that they weren't supposed to, and they just didn't get caught, and they get to keep that time.
Yeah.
Right. I think that's the thing that is worrisome to me. Is on the one hand, I definitely want us to get it right. I want us to get the right times and the right people, but how are you going to knock one person because there's video and then there's other people that aren't? I mean, I feel like that's something you got to catch. You got to catch it on the course. Yeah. Or we're going to create a culture where we've got people who are out there videoing other people's races just to find something to nitpick. And I don't think that really is what we want either. So,
yeah. And then, not everyone having film of them. And then, it was also weird because, what is the penalty for lungers? I think 6 minutes was just sort of made up. I don't believe that's actually.
Yeah, I think the penalty that he was originally given, I think, was actually more than what was in the rule book. I think that that might be part of the reason why they fixed it. But crazy, man. Well, I think we've kind of beaten that. Any final thoughts for our listeners, Marcus?
No, thanks for the time. We didn't have too hot of takes, so I think that's good. And
it helps when we're aligned.
We got another 4 or 5 weeks just wondering what's Rich doing, and then we'll see in Chicago.
Yeah, let's go. Actually, let's end with a spicy take. Let's get a prediction. What are you running in Chicago? What is Rich running in Chicago?
I would hope we can be very close. I do agree with him. He has had sort of a rough go with it he hasn't run a fast course, and he's still been putting down some pretty good times. So I would say hopefully we're in that 57 to 58 range. I think if I'm close to him, I'm going to be running a good time. So that's the goal.
Are you giving him that work though?
To be determined.
All right. Respect. I won't push any further. Well, Marcus, dude, it was a pleasure having you on today. Seriously, I appreciate the time. It was awesome watching that race in Toronto. I'm super excited to get to watch you and the homie Rich go head to head in Chicago. That'll be fun. I'll be on the sidelines. I'll cheer both of you on. Maybe I'll throw you both some waters, help keep you hydrated. But excited to see how it plays out. And seriously, man, best of luck this season. Hope that you're able to break in that Elite 15. But if not, dude, I hope that you and Dawson make it to the Elite 15 doubles. And we're cheering on the Wisco boys at World Championships.
Let's do it.
Awesome. Thanks, man. Really appreciate it.
Thanks.
Talk to you later.